As a nation, we have endured far too many of these tragedies in the last few years. An elementary school in Newtown, a shopping mall in Oregon, a house of worship in Wisconsin, a movie theater in Colorado, countless street corners in places like Chicago and Philadelphia. Any of these neighborhoods could be our own. So we have to come together, and we're going to have to take meaningful action to prevent more tragedies like this from happening, regardless of politics.
Hey everyone, welcome in. Thanks for joining in this evening. Welcome to Dom Time. The President talking about meaningful action. And that's where we are this Monday. There are a lot of things I'll discuss with you over the next half hour. In studio with me, I have Shira Goodman, the Executive Director of Ceasefire Pennsylvania. We'll talk with her about some of the things that might be done around the debate over guns. But first, we want to welcome to the show from Harrisburg, someone who's a frequent guest on my show, and talk about some of the things that are happening in schools today as we speak in Pennsylvania. There were at least two developments that I've seen and some broader developments. Ron Tamales is the Secretary of Education in the Corbett administration. He joins us here on Dom Time. Mr. Secretary, thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Dom.
Well, a couple of the things that I wanted to make mention of, and then we'll get to the broad part of this whole deal, Secretary, is that we saw in Upper Dublin High School down here in the southeast this morning. Kid brings an umbrella to school. I think it was in some kind of packaging. Immediately, somebody thinks it's a rifle. We have a lockdown in the school. And here's what I wanted to ask. When I went to school, the idea of a lockdown drills, lockdown practice, law enforcement repeatedly being involved with this, it's a big Megillah. What can you tell us about the level of preparedness in schools and what's happened today across Pennsylvania, if anything?
Well, our educators and our professionals in the schools across Pennsylvania obviously are on a bit of a heightened alert because of what happened up in Connecticut. And we understand why. We're nervous about just the whole reaction of what happened, and then in addition to that, as we've seen in too many situations, there are circumstances where people want to do gain some fame because of a copycat. So we're taking extra precautions in all of our schools across Pennsylvania. One of the things that we do, and making sure that everybody who enters that building has to go through that very secure environment, which is what happened up in Connecticut, but nothing is foolproof. The other thing that teachers across Pennsylvania today are folding this into their instruction with their kids as much as in the appropriate way when they deem that it's appropriate. And I think that's entirely what we should be telling our kids, that school is safe, you're going to be protected, and in addition to that, although they're not sharing this, but that our teachers and our administrators are reviewing all of their plans and all of their safety plans going forward.
Now, I wanted to bring Shira Goodman in a second. I'll give her first crack at this. Thanks for joining us, Shira, from Ceasefire Pennsylvania. I'm a supporter, and I'll ask the Secretary about what happened, I believe, in Butler, Pennsylvania today. They fast-tracked having an armed officer of some sort in each school in Butler, Pennsylvania. They're making national news because they moved on this. It was in the works, but they really sped it up. Ceasefire think that's a good idea to stop someone coming in that means to kill kids.
Well, obviously, everybody's looking at their security measures,
right.
and Butler had this plan in the works for a while. I think it's important for each school to look at it, to talk to their officials, and obviously you want to do everything you can to protect the children, no doubt. I think that we have to be careful before we start saying that that's the answer for all schools. We have to look at, we're now putting a gun in our schools.
But would there be any philosophic objection that Ceasefire PA has to that if there were various regulations, training, et cetera, that might be very tight around this to make sure this is done appropriately?
It's not a philosophical objection. It's just to raise the concerns that you are now actually introducing a weapon in the schools. You now have introduced a new target.
Right.
Certainly not for little kids, but maybe older children where we have seen school shootings by students. You've now introduced a weapon that maybe somebody didn't already have. The other thing that we know is even really highly trained people don't usually think that having an extra armed person during a shootout actually saves lives. It would endanger more people. We know of situations in Tucson where there was somebody with a firearm who came out of the supermarket, saw two people struggling, was about to take aim, and realized he wasn't sure who the aggressor was and didn't shoot, And after Jared Loughner was taken away, he realized he almost shot the civilian hero. So I think we have to be really careful about thinking that armed guards are the answer, but certainly schools have a responsibility to their students and their families, and it's important that the school districts are looking at this.
Secretary Tamales, any sense of how many school districts do you know? Can you tell viewers tonight? Butler's one. Are others taking a look at this modality? And I had a secondary question because of your time on this. Somebody out here at the TV station said to me, they would even look at bulletproof glass because that's what this guy shot through to get into the building.
Yeah, and that's something that every school has got to look at, and the safety concerns in one area of the Commonwealth may be a little bit different than other areas of the Commonwealth. Mm-hmm. We have over 770 school districts of one form or another, either charter schools or other forms of LEAs, IUs, and we have over 130 of them that are authorized through the court, through their plans, that have the ability to have people in their buildings carrying weapons if they so choose. So what Butler's doing now is not something that's unique to Butler. It's something that we see in other schools and other districts across Pennsylvania if they deem that it's important and appropriate for those school districts to do.
Parting area for you quickly. I think my layman's guide, this school was practiced. They did everything by the book, including having teachers calm kids and keep them quiet by practicing coloring in sort of more safe rooms when this rampage was going on, and yet we still saw this. Would you say what they did seems to be relatively close to state of the art?
It should, yes. It seems like they did all the appropriate things. Now, it's still relatively early. We haven't heard the definitive part about this, and it's dangerous always to speculate on what happened inside the building during those harrowing minutes. But one thing that they did, and including the protections that they had in place, were built off of experiences that we've had, unfortunately, in our country's history with other school shootings. And we learn and we learn and we learn, and we try and improve the security for these for our most precious people. But Dom, you and I both would agree, I believe, that we have to recognize that there is evil in this world, and evil manifests itself in different ways. And one of the things that happened in Connecticut was an evil action was taken that brought harm to these children, and these children were caught up with a person who was set at the beginning of the day to do harm to those children. Unfortunately, those brave teachers and administrators who sacrificed their lives in order to save those children will be remembered long, long time after the person who perpetrated this ever will be.
I hope so. Thank you, Secretary Tamales, Secretary of Education in Pennsylvania. Coming up, we talk more with Shira Goodman, and we flesh out some of the other issues here, including privacy issues, medication issues, survivalist instincts with the mom, apparently. We'll get into all that here on Dom Time.